Welcome to ApeTV. I'm your host, Beeridiceos. I'm here with ApeLabs President, Chip. How you doing today, Chip?
I'm doing great, B. Thanks for asking, and thanks for sitting on the other side of the table and taking over ApeTV so I can pursue this opportunity. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for this opportunity because this is something I always wanted to do, and it's all because of you, Chip.
Thanks, man. Well, I'm totally confident in your ability and look forward to working more on ApeTV with you.
Definitely appreciate it, man. All right, so let's go ahead and get into it.
Yeah.
All right, so the largest barrier to entry for DeFi participants is knowledge. Knowledge of wallets, protocols, risk, functionality, opportunity, security, or sustainability. Beyond texts, sporadic workshops, the random YouTube video, there's nowhere to go to learn about crypto. That changes with ApeLabs, correct?
Absolutely does. Absolutely does. And that's it's quite a mouthful. And so when we're looking out at educational opportunities in crypto, they're very few and far between. They're very bland and blasé, low effort, non-interactive, right?
Yeah.
And so if you want to prepare people to go into these spaces, right, to go into any DeFi protocol and start farming or trading NFTs, they have to be prepared in many ways, and it has to be a multifaceted approach to the education, because someone could be adept at technical analysis and they can look at charts and they can see opportunities others can't, but they might be inadequate in operational security. So they're going to need help getting up to speed so they don't end up losing their funds to phishing or spoofing attacks, right? Because no matter how skilled you are at reading charts, if you don't know how to navigate the scene and you don't have those street smarts, you can lose it all through, essentially kind of like just unawareness, right, of all these different types of scams. So for people to be adequately prepared to operate and navigate these environments, they have to have training in a variety of areas. And so we're going to provide that. And we're going to provide it in a very interactive setting. And we look forward to providing more and more opportunities as we grow and develop over time. So more languages in more classes and more labs and more guest speakers, more instructors. And it's really exciting to set off right now with it.
Yeah, it's a very amazing time that we live in, right? And just to see a project like this come out, because I myself was a victim of a scam when I first started in DeFi, and it's a tough pill to swallow. And I commend you for this. This is amazing, and I cannot wait to see what you guys come up with next.
Thank you. And no one's in, like, everyone has been hustled in crypto. Like, if you have spent enough time in crypto, you've been hustled and you've been scammed. And like, it's okay to admit it, right? Like, it happens to the best of us. But their prevalence can be mitigated by an educated market. And the market can regulate itself through education. So rather than getting sucked into the gimmicky tokenomics and the really, really sketchy website in the GitHub that is just repulsive to look at, people aren't really looking for these identifiers. And so it's easy to get lured into these kind of like hustles and stuff. So when people have a better understanding of how to fundamentally analyze projects, how to understand the tokenomics, like how to look for the team allocations, lockups, looking at their GitHub and understanding if there's any activity whatsoever, these are things we're going to provide.
Yeah, it's just mind blowing. It's amazing what you guys are doing. Now, I know you're not doing this alone,
right?
So would you like to introduce the rest of the ApeLabs team?
Yeah, of course. So we have they're very familiar to people who have been in and around ApeSwap. Most of them are. Our vice president in Bursar, who is essentially the chief accountant, is Jim Ben, the community director for ApeSwap.
Love Jim.
Yep, he's been involved, from the beginning, and we're really fortunate to have him kind of guiding everything and available to offer insights and direction and execution. It's been really, really critical. So, and then we have our Oracle, which we felt like it was a really, really good name for the role, given, you know, what our instruction is. And that's Nana, more commonly than Knight. And so she manages our communications and messaging and really kind of pivots through all the different departments and people within the institution. We have our Dean Cryptables, so very, very familiar to our Japanese apes. But he's a former teacher, and he's very, very passionate about the topic. And so he's been instrumental in constructing the curriculum. And so like the syllabi that you see online, like that's the work of Cryptables. And he's also managing kind of the relationships and the approach of all of our topic experts and guest speakers that are going to come in. And so he's really driving the academic portion of everything. We've got Blazer as our registrar, who's got his hands full now with our registration open in public. And so he's going through and he has his processes for organizing, because our class sizes are pretty limited, and that's by design, because we want this to be like a real environment that mimics like an actual classroom. So if we were to cram 2,000 or 3,000 people into a lab, you know, it's like, what on earth is this? So he's going through the applications, and he's the guy that any potential applicants want to impress, because he's doing the yays and nays on acceptance.
Nice.
Yep. We have our ombudsman and NFT mentor, Mac, which everybody seems to really, really love the NFTs, and I'm happy to talk about those for a second too. But so in addition to designing and minting the NFTs that graduates receive, as ombudsman, he's there to kind of protect the students' integrity, to make sure that they're finding value in the institution, organizing activity amongst grads, alums, and kind of stewarding our private server that we're going to have for anybody who graduates. So that's kind of his role. It's very vast and very involved, and he's been banging out so much. And, you know, like I said, the NFTs are really, really cool. And I think students are going to be proud about it, because we're going to issue those when they graduate. So when you attend a lab, your graduation certificate is going to be one of these really cool, unique NFTs that we don't sell, right? We don't sell them. They're only issued when you graduate. And so we think that students are going to have a lot of pride in that.
Yeah. And go ahead.
No, please go ahead.
Yeah, the artwork is amazing. If anybody wants to check it out.
So we have the whole lineup on apelabs.education/NFT. It's actually our second most popular page on the site so far. It shows each NFT that you earn when you successfully complete a lab. When you complete the entire 8 labs, right? So that's a trimester for us, and that's our standard curriculum. You're considered ApeLabs certified, and you're issued a very special and very unique NFT that not many people have. And that's also going to be reflected. That certification, you know, we're going to kind of build that out a bit through relationships with job boards. And so if you're a graduate or if you're ApeLabs certified, like brokering relationships so that designation is reflected, and kind of, you know, if you're looking to hire in crypto, like we want to make this a standard, right? Like we want, like, where do you go? Like if you want to see if anyone has any actual real trading in crypto beyond development, right? Like how do you know? How do you verify this? Like how do you know that they actually know what they're talking about? And so we want to kind of fill that void.
Yeah,
and
that's yes, a great idea. That's a great idea.
Yeah, it's great for the utility of what we're doing, and it fills a huge void. So, you know, Lemon, which is a job board coming out from Moonlight, we're initially in talks with them about it, and I think it's going to work out, and we're really excited for it. And we're potentially going to have Nick from Moonlight come on for a cool class about DEX price derivation in our Flex Labs. But kind of getting away, because I got one last team member to mention, and that is our newest addition, and that is Paka, who is coming on as a teaching assistant. And then he's looking to expand our English language offerings starting in January. So we'll be able to have 2 labs per week instead of 1.
That's just amazing. Now, Chip, could you tell me when and how this brilliant idea came to be?
Yeah, I'd love to, because it was a request from Obi. Um, so Obi wanted to, like, what we see in the community, right, is we see a lot of discussion that are kind of fundamental misunderstandings of what DeFi is and what certain tokens are meant to do and what they're not meant to do, and so forth and so on. And then on top of it, we see the predators that come in terms of the scammers trying to hustle and stuff. We see people falling victim to it, and so it's always been something that we wanted to drive, right? To have like a real initiative for education. So late June, Obi asked me if I wanted to head that up, given my background. And I, of course, said, yeah. I was like, yeah, I'd love to. And so I stewed on it for a few weeks, later presented it to the ApeSwap community team and then the ApeSwap founders. And everybody was super, super on board with it. And everyone loved the concept. They loved how beneficial it is to all parties involved, because we're going to burn half of our banana tuition we take in, which is a huge use case for the token. And then we're making the space better, right? And we're building out our network and our ecosystem, and we're establishing relationships and hopefully fostering projects to grow within our ecosystem, as the project develops and grows over time. So that's kind of how it all came together and what it came about. A lot of work has gone into it on the back end over the past 6 weeks, particularly. And so again, Jim's been riding alongside with me the whole time on it, and just had total complete support from the ApeSwap founding team, which has made everything really, really easy.
Yeah, it's just staggering how much ApeSwap thinks about the user base, right?
Yeah.
Everything is about keeping everybody safe, and this is just one step towards a brighter future in crypto. I love it.
Yeah, well, it's genuine too, and so that's why that's why it's easy for us to scale these types of things, because our desire to be helpful and also just a positive force in the space, it's actually real, and it's a strong desire, and it's always been kind of a stated communal goal, was to always just be very helpful and to not be toxic and guarded in just focused on price entirely, right? And those types of things. So it's worked really, really well for us, because it's real.
Yeah, most definitely. Now, if you want, you can walk us through each lab. Let us know all the categories and any guest speakers that you will have in the future.
So we've got, the first lab that we're going to do is DeFi 101. And so in approaching this concept, it's well, okay, where do you start? And you could start all the way back at Bitcoin, and you could go through proof of work, and you could go through the ICOs and talk about Ethereum ICO, and then start to talk about tokens, and then start to, it's by the time you actually got to smart contracts at DeFi, you had about, 100, 150 hours of potential curriculum. So it's well, given what ApeSwap is, and given where we think decentralized finance is going, let's give a little bit of homage to the beginning, but let's kind of pick up with smart contracts. And so what we're going to do in DeFi 101 is kind of go through and just define, right? We're going to define everything, and we're going to put everything into practice, and we're going to understand so why does a DEX incentivize liquidity, right?
Yep.
Why are they giving you money for free? If you just bring your, all you have to do is bring 2 of your tokens over, put them in a pairing, throw it on a contract, and all of a sudden you're getting money for free. Well, why is that? Right. And so kind of defining what these elements are. So not just strict definitions of terms, but the elements of what makes DeFi. And then we're going to have Miro from Jet Fuel come in for that class as a guest speaker. And he's going to talk about AMMs, right? Automated market makers. And because that's his forte, right? And so we have all these, we have more than enough speakers within ApeSwap to come in and speak. But what we want to do with the guest speakers is we want to try to offer different perspectives than the teachers and the people internal to ApeSwap, right? Give them something other to hear. And so excited for that one. NFT 110, NFTs in terms of their role in DeFi currently and their use cases going forward. It's such a huge part of decentralized finance, because you're talking about DAO activities and potential pools for pay, right? And there's all sorts of different things that you could do with NFTs that go strictly beyond collectibles. So let's look at what those are, right? Like, let's look at what makes an NFT valuable, right? Like, why does the market chase Bored Ape Yacht Club, but they don't chase a similar style project on Ethereum or a different chain? What's driving marketplaces on certain platforms, right? So OpenSea on Ethereum is everything, right? And so now what happens if OpenSea gets attacked or exploited or goes down? What happens to the Ethereum market? What if you're overexposed to Ethereum NFTs and it's all contingent upon OpenSea's viability, right? Like, how does this weigh into your risk, which comes in the later class? But so for that class, we're going to cover just everything NFT, and we're going to have our partners for our NFT minting is Babylon's. And so we're going to have Hoja come over from Babylon's to be the guest speaker in that class.
Amazing.
Yeah. And then, so those are the first 2 weeks, and that's what we're currently registering for. By the time this episode airs, registration will essentially be closed because it's going to air on Friday. But after the subsequent registration period would be the next 2 classes that I'm going to talk about. And that is Risk Management 210. Which is it's a class that I love, right? Because this is my type of forte, and this is personally where I think that there's a huge miss in terms of education in crypto. Because in traditional investment, you'll have investors that will never ever sniff a 3x or a 4x, right?
Yeah.
In crypto, you can have a 5x over a period of a day or two, and then a 10x. And then if you look at something like Crypto Blades, like 100x, 150x, right?
Yeah.
So in traditional finance, like this is unheard of, right? And it's only accessed through the volatility of crypto. But the tenets of traditional investing are easy to port over, right? So like, if you have something that went 50x, like, what more are you waiting for, right?
Yeah.
Like, what more do you need to get out of that? Because in a traditional investment setup, this is like a decade type this is a decade scale return. You're talking 2 to 3 decades to get a 50x. Like, that's why, if you set up a franchise for like a Chick-fil-A or a 7-Eleven, like, you don't get a 50x the first year, right? Like, you don't get a 50x in the first 5 years or the first 10 years. So, like, why go through all the headache of setting up a chicken shop to get like a 5 to 10 to 15% return annually on your investment, when you could just dabble in crypto and get a 50x, and then you take it for granted? Yeah. So like, managing risk and understanding that you have a risk profile and that people have different levels of risk aversion, right? And so someone might be super risk averse, and they might want to get into crypto, but they don't know how. All they hear about are the horror stories, right? Like, their best friend bought Doge at 80 cents and now it's under 20. So they're really concerned about it, but like, they don't know that you could just farm stables. Yeah. And you can farm stables at 15 to 20% return on a lot of dexes. And how does that compare to your savings account, right? You're talking about 20, 30, 50x on your savings account percentage points available to you. And you're not exposing yourself to any fluctuations of price because you're literally having stables paired with stables. Yeah. So maybe the criticisms and all the complaints about crypto, a lot of them could be resolved if people better understand how risk factors into all of their decision making, And so that's what we want to look to kind of teach in that lab. We're still pending a guest speaker on that one, but we have a couple really good options lined up that come from a traditional finance background, and they can speak to those kind of like risk factors as well.
I'm looking forward to that. Like the risk management, I've known plenty of people that made 20, 30x, didn't get out, and it started to dump again. And there you go. You're back where you were before you bought.
Yeah, you're back where you were. And, like when you're talking about, okay, hold, right? Like I'm a believer in hold. Like you'd have to be kind of silly to not hold. But that's a very, very large time frame. Like I don't need to teach anybody to go buy Bitcoin on Coinbase and send it to a ledger.
Yep.
Like I don't need to teach somebody to do that. Like we're talking about being active, right? Being like very, very fluid within the mechanics of decentralized finance and driving it, like giving more liquidity, right? Like giving more activity, more users, more NFTs, more transactions, just all of it, just building this space out. That's what we're trying to do. So the next one up is operational security 220. And this is a critical class for many, many people because, when people enter crypto, it's usually on the recommendation of a friend, right? Because there aren't ad campaigns or lobbying firms putting crypto front and center in front of the world or anything like that. So people kind of learn like on their own accord, and generally it's trial by fire. A lot of times people get burned. We've seen some super, super heartbreaking stuff happen to people who were victimized by Google hosting spoof sites on their ad service, which they purport to ban crypto, right? Mm-hmm. So we can't advertise on Google because they ban crypto, but a site spoofing us can, right? Like this is how the cards are stacked against us in this space. And so the best way to deal with that is to not use Google to search for a website. But how are you going to convey that to everybody who uses Google every day?
Yeah.
Right? So all you have to do, though, is just bookmark the site. That's all you have to do. Or if you don't know what the site is, link through from a trusted source like CoinMarketCap or CoinGecko, right? Like abandon search engines in crypto. Don't use them, right? But no one says this. No one says this. And so these are the types of topics that we're going to cover in operational security. And so like private key storage, like how are you treating your keys? Like, do you have your wallet on your regular phone that you use 1,000 different apps that have all sorts of different permissions to just pillage through your data on your phone? Like if you have a bunch of apps on your phone that you have your crypto on and you transact on, like you're exposing yourself to some pretty high elements of risk because you have no idea who could take your private key and siphon those funds, right? So like there's some very, very kind of basic elements of operational security that are now amiss in DeFi because the types of users that have entered, they've entered in and they're younger and they're super inexperienced. They're just chasing gains that they saw on TikTok and Reddit and those types of places. And so they need to be prepared to come in here and move, securely. Because if you walk into crypto and if you walk into DeFi and you don't have any ideas about operational security, you're just asking for it. You have a huge target on your back. You're going to fall victim to one of these DM scams, one of these social engineering scams, right? Where someone pretends to be Obi and they DM him, and then they're like, "Oh yeah, sure. Hey, Obi." He's like, "Oh, did you get the message? There's a security flaw. I need your private keys. We're going to switch your bananas out." Oh, okay. Do you mean the seed? Yeah, I need all 12 words. Okay. Well, here's the 12 words. Okay. And then the scammer blocks them.
Yep. And then all their funds are gone.
All their funds are gone. And then they turn around and they go into the social channels of where they got robbed at. And they're like, yeah, this place is a scam. Yep. It's like, no, dude. Like, so these basic tenets, right? Like Anybody that DMs you asking you any information about your wallet is a scammer or a hustler or a government agent, right?
Yep.
Like in all my years in crypto, I've never DM'd someone them asking them for their private keys ever. Like how that topic even comes up, I don't even know, you know? So like training in that area is huge. And we've got Borat coming in to speak about that topic. And, you know, in our Spaces event yesterday, like there's no one like more qualified to speak about these things. You know, he's a certified ethical hacker. You know, we came up together in crypto, like our stripes are shared in terms of knowledge and the mistakes and the things that we've done. But he also has that professional training and advanced degrees and certifications to kind of support his position to speak about it. So that will be after this episode airs, the next registration period that opens up, it will be for those two labs. And then the following set will be two of the best, right? Like going back to traditional finance, you know, there's two forms of analysis in investing. There's fundamental analysis and there's technical analysis. And so fundamental analysis is diving into what they're purporting to do, right? So what is this project claiming they're going to do, right? They're going to save the world, and every token they sell, they're going to plant a tree, right? That's what they're going to do. Okay, so this is their mission. Now, who is the team that's going to execute this mission? Oh, well, it's, you know, one guy on one corner of the earth and another guy on the other corner of the earth, and, you know, that's who they are. And so, okay, so why do I want to pay these guys to go plant trees when I could just do that myself, right? Or do I really trust these guys to execute it? Do they have a track record that I can leverage to see if they're actually going to plant the trees, right? Do they have a relationship established with some sort of tree service or national forest or something that is going to be the recipient of these funds, or they're going to execute the planting of the seeds? Like, these are the types of things that you're going to uncover in fundamental analysis. And one element of fundamental analysis in the traditional world is the books, accounting, right? So this is where we're going to look at, hey, where are your tokens going, right? Like who's holding what for how long? Why do you have it set up like this? What on earth is this structure? Why does the team need 30%? So these are the fundamental analysis. Is basically we're just going to dissect the project, and this is going to prepare people to go into any environment and have a lot of confidence in their ability to make decisions, to make sound decisions, right? And so, you know, we're really lucky to have Obi come in to speak as the guest speaker for this class. I know I talked about, you know, stepping external to ApeSwap, but Obi's nose is really, really good. And he's, you know, as a builder of ApeSwap, obviously he knows kind of what it takes to cut it. So I'm excited for him to share his insights on that.
Yeah, Obi. Good old Obi. I can't wait, man.
Yeah, that's going to be great. The subsequent class is technical analysis. I mean, it's generally self-describes, right? But what we're going to do is we're just going to teach like the very, very fundamental elements. Like we're not going to go into like super advanced, like Ichimoku clouds and all these different types of ratios. We're just going to introduce topics: support, resistance, moving averages, right? Bollinger Bands, just very, very limited basic things, so that if someone wants to make if someone wants to enter a position on a coin, they can look at a chart and they can have general confidence in whether, look, this is trending down and there's no end in sight, or, you know, this is on a pretty nice uptrend. I feel like I'm catching it at the beginning, and just explaining candlesticks and ranges and those types of things. So it's meant to get people to the point where they can develop their own charts with some very, very fundamental indicators and have confidence in what they discern from it, right? And for that, we're going to have eyes from the Primate Social Society, the NFT project on Ethereum. Literally the only technical analyst I know that uses the I Ching. And so until someone presents a technical analyst that can top that, like, eyes is the best in my book. So I have a lot of confidence in Iz's ability to come in and talk about it. And then that would mark kind of the third grouping of labs in the certification program. And then the final grouping is Intro to DeFi Coding in GitHub 440. So this is going to look a little bit intimidating, right? But there isn't going to be any actual coding in the class. Like you might submit a pull request or submit a commit, but we're not going to dive into actual code. What we're going to do is we're going to talk about the languages that are used in different protocols. So if you wanted to pursue coding in DeFi and you wanted to write code on Cardano, right? Like what would you write? Like what would you do, right? So like it's Haskell, right? Yeah. But supposedly they're going to have an EVM. I don't know how that works with their unspent transaction output problem, but supposedly it's going to be possible. Binance Smart Chain, it's Solidity, right? It's an EVM, Ethereum virtual machine. If you go to Solana, I've heard that Solana's in Rust. I haven't looked personally, but these are the things that we're going to teach in the class in terms of, all right, these are the languages the protocols use. And now how do you want to see how they're implemented? Because most projects are going to have their code on GitHub or GitLab for public review because FOSS, free open source software, has always been a major component of crypto. And any project that isn't FOSS is generally at a disadvantage fundamentally, right? Because that exposes you to higher levels of risk. Because if the code isn't open source and people can't review it, that presents a lot of potential issues. So when you go to GitHub, like how do you know what you're looking for? How do you know if someone is active, if a project is actually putting resources to it? Because they can feign activity through very low effort things like commits, right? But they can't feign activity through a variety of contributors submitting pull requests to the project. So if you have a bunch of disconnected entities interacting on a project's GitHub, like that's very bullish, right? Because it indicates that there are contributors from outside the project looking at the code and improving it. And those are the types of things that we're going to go into the class. Like, how do you assess this? How do you understand what's taking place? And what do you do with the information thereafter? Because like if you were to compare ApeSwap's GitHub to like BuySwap's, right? Our GitHub is super, super active. There's a bunch of contributors. It's crazy, right? But then like the alternative is there's nothing. There's nothing. So like how does that weigh into your decision-making, right? And so kind of tying that in. And then we're going to have Klaus from Blockmind come in, and he's going to be our guest speaker for that class. And he's just going to talk generally about coding and what it's like and how to effectively navigate these types of areas and how you can kind of get started on your own. And Klaus is really, really well equipped to do that. I mean, you can look at his white papers or look at, any of his posts, and he's a very, very adept mathematician. Finally, and this is probably the most exciting lab that we're going to offer, and it's Project Management 450. And so in this lab, it's time to put the shoe on the other foot, right? So the students will be assigned to groups, and then the groups are going to be assigned a particular project, right? So one group might be a new NFT project that's just launching, and the other group is going to be a very, very well-established NFT project that has millions of dollars of sales every day. And all the groups are going to have different components. One might be a long-standing DEX, right? One might be a brand new platform, a brand new DeFi protocol that's launching, and they're trying to attract participants. And each different group is going to be presented with scenarios, and how they respond to these scenarios will trigger chain events, and it'll lead to different situations for them where they have to respond to. Because the one thing that is never really seen in crypto is how agile and how responsive crypto teams have to be to anything. You don't know what is going to come any given day. You don't know it as a market participant. You don't know it as a team member. You just never know what you're going to encounter in crypto. The craziest stuff happens all the time. Like today, there was some centralized exchange, and they put $23 million of gas in Ethereum transaction.
I seen that. Oh.
So imagine if you're imagine if you mine that block. Like you had a really, really good day, right? So
Yeah.
like you have to be incredibly responsive and you have to be incredibly agile. And so what we want to do in this class is we want to put students in the position of the teams and see what it's like to try to respond to these things, because some of these issues that present themselves and some of what pops up, they're potentially very, very damaging, potentially life-threatening to some projects. And how they approach their decision-making and what they do in response to these and how they execute their mission is a very, very good barometer of the team executing the project, of their skill set. So we want to replicate that experience. And this is going to be a bit of an interesting one because this is considered the capstone for ApeLabs certification. And in its current format, we're thinking that there isn't really a test, but the outcomes of their decision, it's essentially like a map, right, for decision making. And you can decide your way into failure, right? You know what I mean? Like you could do it. It's not likely, but you could do it. If you play all the cards wrong, you could fail your way right out of it. So that's going to be the capstone. And then anybody that attends from class 1, lab 1 through lab 8, from DeFi 101 all the way to project management 450, those people are considered ApeLabs certified. And in my opinion, these people are going to be the best of the best in terms of navigating the markets, being able to make sound decision making, not exposing themselves to too much risk as it relates to their profile. And they're likely going to be very, very successful. And if they're active in communities and if they're active in crypto and if they want to pursue either contributing to a project or building out their own project, like these are doors that will be opened, for them through their training and their education in this structure.
Yeah. Look, sign me up. I know how to DeFi, but sign me up. So could you walk the users and I through the process to sign up for ApeLabs?
Yeah. So, as talked about a bit, the registration for the first 2 labs is currently open. But by the time this episode airs, it will essentially be closed. So in 2 weeks from the time that this airs, registration for risk management 210 and operational security 220 will be available on our site. And you can go on and you just fill out the application. It doesn't take long, maybe 10 minutes. We do ask some kind of background information so we can have a better understanding of who our students are. But yeah, you would just go to apelabs.education/apply, complete that form when it's open and available, and make a choice whether you want to take 1 class, 1 lab, 2 labs, or the rest of the labs that are available. Like these options will be available for you.
Definitely. Now, can you go over the pricing for each lab or the full curriculum?
Yeah. So this is part of the great use case that I was talking about earlier. We're asking people to pay their tuition in Banana, and the amount that they pay is relative to their country. So someone in the United States is going to pay $175 in Banana for their tuition, right? Someone in Turkey, I think, is going to pay like $65 in Banana for their tuition. And someone in Russia is going to pay $125 per in Banana per lab. And so we're scaling this to keep it affordable, because what is sustainable in more developed nations is entirely unattainable in others. So it was really important to have that scale. It makes things really confusing and it makes it hard to understand, but it's something that we're willing to sacrifice so we can reach the globe, right? Because that was essentially the goal of decentralized finance, is to bring finance to the world, not just the West. So that's how we're going to structure that. So if you did all 8 labs as an American, it'd be $1,400 in Banana for the entire coursework, which is over 160 hours of in-seat live lessons. So it's a really, really good value. especially when you consider college cost in the US.
Oh yeah, it definitely, like, especially if you're just looking to get into crypto in general, not even just DeFi. Like, I would recommend take these labs because it will be a lifesaver. It will save you from getting scammed. It'll save you from losing any type of money. I mean, it can't think for you, but it can give you the right ideas.
Right. Right. You're well prepared. It's like if you were, let's say you were playing like soccer, right? And so one team, everybody has a position, right? They have plays, they have a goalkeeper, everybody's in their spot and they're ready to execute what they practiced, right? And then on the other side of the field, you've got 10 guys just kind of wandering around. They don't have positions, they didn't practice, they don't have any plan, right? They just showed up to the field and now they're ready to win the World Cup. So the team that the team that practiced, the team that has their positions defined and that they have their plays set up, they would likely obliterate the team that just showed up with no approach, right?
Yep.
And so it's the same way with this, right? Like you want to practice how you play. So we're actually going to dive into this process and we're going to show you what it takes to be safe and successful in this arena. And then, so when it comes time for a new launch, a new coin out in the market that's launching, or a new NFT project, or an up and coming one, like you're the team that has the plan. You have an approach, like you know what you're doing. Like this isn't your first time. Like you're ready to go, and that's what we hope to instill.
You definitely will, for sure.
Right
now, we already talked about the certificate of completion, the NFTs. Now, what will people do after they graduate?
Yeah, so we kind of touched on that a bit, right? Like they're going to be well prepared and well equipped to go out into these markets, make sound decisions, and execute their plans and approaches, right? Because it's one thing to have a plan, but then you have to have the discipline to actually execute it. So in terms of their personal life, they're going to be well equipped to go into these markets and likely be very, very successful. Outside of that, if they want to contribute to projects, if they want to work on projects, we want to facilitate that. And so that's where the relationship with the job boards and getting ApeLabs certifications and ApeLab graduates, getting this as a recognized status within the crypto employment kind of sphere is a big goal for us, right? But with this being so new and so fresh, like these things take time to implement. On top of that, within the alumni server, as we have more labs and more grads and more ApeLab certified people coming into our alumni server, there's the guest speakers are going to be there, and there's going to be people from ApeSwap, and there's going to be other kind of people within the industry that are there. And so where networking and where building takes them, it's really up to them. But they won't be limited, right?
Yeah.
Like they won't have limits in terms of what they can pursue. Whereas in its current state, people are actually really, really quite limited. So yeah, it's, we just want to get people ready to pursue their interest and to be able to, have financial comfort and stability.
So it's just amazing, man.
Yeah.
Now, what does the future hold for ApeLabs? Like, what are you guys looking forward to doing in 2022?
Yeah, well, personally, I'm really looking forward to getting more languages because it gets very, very ethnocentric, I guess, in crypto in terms of everything's designed for the West, it seems. So we want to bootstrap more languages. We want to have more instructors coming in, and so really scale is kind of the thing that I'm really, really looking forward to. But then there's kind of newer elements, and we're looking at, maybe we have our ApeLabs certification ceremony in the metaverse, right? And so the inclusion of like the metaverse and these newer age developments that are coming into the markets, we're gonna be just as reactive and just as adaptive as a token project within our ecosystems. So scale and surprises, I would say, for 2022.
I'm definitely looking forward to that.
Yeah, me too.
Now, with all the special guests that you're going to have coming on, are there going to be any special guest NFTs?
Yeah, I think that's the most common question I get from all the guest speakers. Maybe if Mac is listening, maybe this will be enough to push him over the edge. But we'll see. Maybe Mac will have a surprise in store for him.
Nice, nice. Now, do you want to tell the users where they can find all Ape Labs all day?
Yeah, so apelabs.education, super, super easy URL to remember and type in. You can also find us on Twitter at ApeLabsEDU is our Twitter tag.
All right. Do you guys have a Discord set up yet, or Telegram?
No, nothing public. We have a dedicated ApeLabs channel in the ApeSwap communal Discord, but in terms of a public Discord, no. We do have a private Discord for grads as they start to come aboard, though.
Oh, nice, beautiful. Well, do you have anything else you'd like to say before we head on and finish our day out?
No, I mean, I hope people dive into what we're trying to do. And for a lot of the listeners of this particular show, right, like they're probably pretty good at DeFi if they're listening to a DeFi podcast on Spotify, right? Like they're probably pretty good. So, but like this is the thing, like everybody in crypto has multiple people in their life where they talk to them about crypto, but that other person, they don't get it. They can't get their mind around it. They can't understand it. They might have very, very real interest in wanting to learn about it, but it doesn't make sense, right? Because during the different eras of FUD, different things caught hold, like, oh, Bitcoin's just like your car doing Sudoku running in the garage and those types of things, right?
Yeah.
Cryptocurrency is used for money laundering, and it's like yes. Nothing to support that, right? Like cash is used for that. Yeah. For those types of people in their lives, like this is a really, really good opportunity for them, and especially as more and more people are out of work through no fault of their own. And everybody's looking for other ways to kind of like transition out of the old guard and the old system. Like, these are the types of opportunities that I hope they take advantage of.
And, everybody listening, if you know somebody, get them in the labs. They need to get into the labs because especially if they're really interested in this stuff. And I'm still learning. I've been doing it for a little bit over 2 years now, and you learn something new every day. Yeah. And when you have somebody putting it in plain sight for you, take it. Take it.
Yeah, no. And like with the way that things change, right? Like what we're trying to do with this curriculum is we're just trying to give you a foundation, a background, so you can go in and as these new things arise, like you can discern yourself. Right? Like you don't need to read all the people shilling it on Twitter, or you don't need to watch that paid influencer shilling it in their, 500,000th video that they've ever created. Like you can just go in and you can diagnose it and assess it yourself. And if you find it attractive, your instincts will guide you to it. So, we're not going to be, shilling projects in here. We're not going to be talking about the newest, latest, greatest, best things. What we're trying to do is we're trying to build a foundation, and the foundation's like cement, right? And so as the weather changes and as parts of the house fall apart, like that foundation is usually still there. So that's what we're trying to build.
Most definitely. All right. Well, I enjoyed having you. I enjoyed hosting my first ApeTV. It's just been amazing.
Congratulations. Yeah, you did really good. I appreciate you. Appreciate being your first guest.
Yeah, it's an honor, Chip.
Oh, thank you, man. I'm very, very, so very pleased and thankful that you're continuing to host this for me, because like the show, like this is my baby. It's very near and dear to me. So like it couldn't be in better hands.
Definitely, man. I appreciate it.
All right. Well, thanks so much, B. Appreciate your time.
All right. I appreciate you, man. All right, everybody. That is it for me for this week.